Hello, everyone. My name is Cashin Alarm. This is the Paradise Radio podcast, and we have a couple special guests visiting us.
Hello, yes. I'm Eppo Ericus, and I'm the director of the film Return to the Falls, and one of many directors from many different places. And beside me is...
I'm Elder Betty Ross. I'm from Michigan Nation, Cowessess First Nation, but in Treaty 5, but I live in Treaty 1. This is Winnipeg, Manitoba.
Okay. Well, we'll start off with you first, Betty Ross. My first question is, can you share what it was like when you first arrived at St. Joseph Residential School?
Okay. When I first arrived in St. Joseph's Residential School, because it was right across from my home, I was only 5 years old, but I never looked at it. I could just hear the children playing. I never looked at it. Instead, a few feet away from my home, I found myself a place where I could sit on a rock and just, be myself. It was almost as if something was trying to pull me away from my comfort zone. So when I first went into the residential school, when the priest, oops.
1 second.
I don't know why this is...
Okay.
Sorry.
When you first went...
Yeah, when I first went into the residential school, I was only 5 years old. When a priest came to literally pull me away from my comfort zone, from my home, that's the moment that he cut off my roots, my language, my life, the love that I've known in there, towards a darker area. So I was just, I didn't know what to think when I seen what happened, because I was traumatized right there. And going towards the lake too, still crying for my home, still wondering what is happening with me, what's happening to my world. And when that door opened, it was like a dungeon. I could just feel the cold, that nun standing there and saying that I was filthy, and the priest pushing me into that dark space. So from there, I was traumatized.
Wow. Second question would be, what gave you the strength to endure what you went through?
Okay. What gave me the strength is we have to go back before the residential school, okay? I was custom adopted by my parents, my father, and that's where I grew up, in that home. It's all in Sugar Falls and Return to the Falls story. So anyway, it's almost as though my father knew that I was going to go away, I don't know where, okay? One morning, he was sitting at the foot of my bed crying in the morning, and I asked him in my first language what was wrong. Papa, why are you crying? And he told me that he has to take me to a special place because I'm going to an era, a dark journey. When it's going to be you're going to go to a dark journey. But I didn't understand because I was only 5 years old. So he took me to this special place called Sugar Falls. Sugay Pawistik in Swampy Cree dialect. So that's where we stood by Sugar Falls. And that's when he started talking about the whole circle of life, the meaning of life, the journey that all mankind is walking to this day. And those teachings that he gave me are very, very powerful teachings. And he told me specifically, keep these teachings. Kanaweni tau kayatan kamintan ininiwishigan at sigiskinoma. Take good care of these teachings. Utas na pitsikitek agawiagitagiutnag. Keep them deep within the recesses of your being where nobody will, be able to take them. Sige maute gati tutein mitani wantipiskaw. kikakakotagi gawin. Kapapa ka maugon mistay kay teniten. Ani neo ni magito ni menu. That's when he said he told me to give these teachings deep within the recesses of my being, because where I'm going to be going is going to be a dark era, where I was going to suffer trauma after trauma after trauma after trauma. He kept using that number 4, but I couldn't understand. Like when I'm 5 years old, I'm only 5 years old and my brain is still developing. I couldn't understand, but he knew that I was struggling to understand. And then he says, you're not going to, you're not going to remember these teachings. But in your future, somewhere in your future, you're going to start thinking about these teachings. Hinini mama tawi nini wisi gana tsigiskinoma giving a notes. Egwana get paspigawian, get paspiguan. This is why I brought you to this space, Sugawi Bawistik Sugar Falls, to teach you these powerful teachings. Because where you are going in that era, you'll suffer trauma after trauma after mistake. How do you put it? Mistake gawin. You're going to suffer trauma after trauma after trauma after trauma, where you're going to be going in this dark journey. Of course, I couldn't understand, and I didn't really comprehend. So the teaching was, you have to be a good girl, you have to listen and you obey. So those are the teachings that I followed before the residential school. And those are the teachings that, how do you say that? That they're so powerful. I don't know how to describe them in English, because those teachings were all in Swampy Cree dialect, and they're very, very deep Cree. It took me a while to really grasp the meaning, to be able to translate into to English to this day. And so those are the teachings that literally saved, how do you say it? That's how I survived those 4 systems, because of those beautiful teachings that were instilled in me when I was only 5 years old. Like, I'm 78 years old right now, 75 years, no, 78 minus 5, 73 years ago. So I hope I answered your question.
That was quite the answer. Let's see. What message would you like to share with younger generations about resilience and healing?
About reconciliation? No?
Resilience and healing.
Resilience and healing, okay. Today's generation, if it is so, there's so much, there's so much that I want to say to the younger generation, and I have younger generations too. First thing is, you're going to feel it deep within the recesses of your being. You're going to ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? You're going to start asking yourself, because the circle of life, where the teachings of my father again, he was telling me when we were standing on Sugar Falls that I'm standing in a south direction. And in a south direction, there's a thunderbird and a lot of millenniums of indigenous teachings and medicines. And the teaching there is nipi, water. Water, that's what he said, nipi umap magan suga, how do you say it? Sugatan ni pi, matsimagan, ayamimagan. Water is very precious, very powerful, and it talks. Umagay siyag, umagawapata manipi, tapos kutskina. Where we're standing right now in Sugar Falls, umanipi, this water, you're related to that water because we are related to this water. Because mistake giskago no, kegas misiwe, almost 99% were made of water, about 99%. So that's where you're standing right now. So you're standing in a south direction right now. That's where the medicine, sage, or what we use to people to epay and people to epausuin. Sige mamistake kung gatin nagisken magatip mutein kip mutein because you're going to encounter a lot of energies in your journey. Agwane gigapat si itano mamaski kikasaskayen. You're going to use this medicine sage. You're going to light it. Agwag mswega kapo eposon. You're going to smudge yourself, your mind, your body, and your spirit, because you'll pick up a lot of energy on your journey. You're starting your journey now. And the question, you're going to ask yourself, the question that you're going to ask yourself when you're standing in the south direction right now, who am I? So I want to share this gift to the younger generations today. Where you are right now on your journey of life, you're standing in the south direction. And the question that we all need to ask ourselves, I'm talking about Turtle Island. Everybody in this world that's living, that's walking, that's breathing on Mother Earth has to ask themselves, or should have asked themselves, well, who am I? So generations of today have to ask will ask themselves, who am I? And if you really want to know who you are, you have to get a hold of some tobacco, traditional tobacco, and pass it to an elder that you can trust, and ask him, her, if you can help you define, have that answer to who you are. Some elders will not take your tobacco if they don't have that teaching. So try and find an elder that you trust to pass your tobacco, and that he or she's going to give you those teachings of who you are. So today, the youth of today are going through so much. I know because I have my generations and my grandsons that always come to me. Why is this happening to me? Who am I? Where am I going? Why is this happening, Grandma? Why am I suffering, Grandma? So it's so crucial that we have those answers ready for our youth. Elders, it is our responsibility, because we've in our journey, we're standing in the north direction now, and it is our duty to teach our generations about the whole circle of life. We have to look towards the east direction, because there's millenniums of teachings there. South directions, same thing. West direction, main thing. And those are the teachings that we pass on to our youth, because our youth are suffering today. They are lost. So know who you are. Know where you come from. Know who you are, and know what is your purpose in this life, and know where are you going. 4 questions that we need to ask ourselves in every direction in our journey in this life. And that's for every single person individual or that walks and breathes and talks on Mother Earth today? Those are the four crucial questions. Those are the questions that my father taught me over 70 years ago when we were standing on Sugar Falls. Ekose.
That was quite the answer. Oh, I'm just close. Wow. Okay. Final question. Is there anything else you'd like to share that you feel is important to people for them to hear?
Oh, my goodness. Yes. That's a good question. Because of the residential schools, because I survived 4 atrocious systems, I was lost. And again, I have to go back to Sugar Falls to teach teachings, because what I'm sharing right now, they're not my teachings. Those teachings were passed down to my father over 70 years ago, and he shared them to me. And he told me, all these teachings that I'm sharing with you, you can't keep them to yourself. You have to share it towards the generation. Newayakise, the 4 directions of mankind. So that's what I'm doing right now. And I'm so grateful for my team that were traveling across Canada and taking these messages, powerful messages, to all, not to all, but the nations that will accept us, that will, invite us into their communities, that we're able to, that I have the voice now, because for so many years I couldn't speak because of the atrocious systems. And that's what my father talked about too, that I'd forget about these teachings, but they will come back. And once I know who I am, he told me that powerful teachings will come to you that you have to share. And that's what's happening. It's almost like he foresaw my future. Everything that's happening today's day, he talked about at Sugar Falls. And I couldn't understand them. Now I'm living them. So those powerful teachings are very, very sacred to me, very powerful to me. But I can't keep them. I have to share them. So another teaching that was given to me is there's only 2 roads in this life. There's that road of darkness that leads to misery. And that's where I was for many, many years after the residential schools, because I didn't know who I was. And there's that road of light of understanding, where I walk right now. Another teaching that he gave me was Sagiwe when puneni agomina puneni tamage. Another teaching that he shared with me is the powerful teaching of love and forgiveness. He told me that I had to, before I could love somebody, that I have to love myself. Before I could forgive anybody, that I have to forgive myself. And that was another journey that I had to go, because after the resident, I had to follow. I had to find, because after the residential schools, I was so angry. I was so angry at Creator. I was so angry at the world. You couldn't sit close to me. I'd kick you for no reason at all. My heart was like a stone. Till I started my healing journey and said, wait a minute. There's beautiful teachings out there that I need to find. The teachings from Sugar Falls, and I need to find those. And I need to start my healing journey. When my generation started being born, because I knew that I needed to take care of them, and I'm still taking care of them, and taking care of them to this day. So those teachings, the Circle of Life teachings, are true. They're very powerful. They're not mine. now I'm sharing them to the generations after generations, to communities that are welcoming us. And, you know, it's a beautiful journey. But at the same time, it's hard. But, you know, meeting people from all walks of life, oh my gosh, it's just so powerful. It's just so beautiful. Like right now, we're in beautiful Alberta, and beautiful people that help us so much in our journey. I just want to say to each and every one of them, Hekusani, thank you very much.
That was great. All right, the filmmaker, the cameraman. What inspired you to create the docudrama Return to the Falls?
I was inspired by my daughter. I was inspired by a story that was given to me through my daughter, and what happened is my daughter found this book called Sugar Falls, and then she approached me and had asked to buy it, and she was 10 years old at the time. And so I gave the little book. It was like a little graphic novel. Looked at the graphic novel and I thought, oh, this is pretty heavy stuff, but my daughter's well read, and I thought, okay, it'll be okay. And so we bought the book, and then she read it probably about 10 times that night in the tent. We were camping on the West Coast, and she in the morning we talked about it, and she thought that Elder Betty would still possibly be alive and that we should get a hold of her. And so about a month later, I called Elder Betty. I found Elder Betty and called her and told her that I would like to help tell her story, work with her nation, work with her community, and help tell that story that she lived, that she survived. And Elder Betty said to me at that point, I've been waiting for your call. So that was the moment, a big moment of inspiration for me. It's like, okay, so, but here we are 10 years later, and it's done. It's filmed, it's created, and the story goes on. We have a screenplay that we have as well for a dramatic film that we want to take to theaters as well. Well, we have to create and build, but judging from what we've done with the documentary, you know, we're on the right path. And right now, it's all about the documentary and the teacher's guide that was created to go hand in hand with it, to go in schools right across the country to help tell this story.
How did you approach telling such a personal and traumatic story with care and respect for the survivor?
Yeah, well, number one, it's about creating relationships. So we got to know each other not in person, but by the phone and by emails over 10 years. And so I came to know her and what more about her story, and we talked about, you know, what if we did a film? What if we talked about all the possibilities of what it could be? And but what really was happening was building trust, building her trust in me. Tobacco?
I asked.
Yes, yes. Oh, yes. Well, Elder Betty taught me a lot. I'll tell you that. She taught me so much. And before anything, in telling story and sharing from an elder, tobacco is offered. And when that tobacco is offered, what comes with it is a request, is a statement and a question asking or saying why you are passing them tobacco. What is it you're trying to find out about? What is your story that you can tell me? Can you please share with me your story? And then you have to give them a reason why you need to know the story. And for me, it was to help her share her story with the world. And that was my question to her and my request. And so I had to offer her tobacco. So that's one example of the things I learned along the way. Secondly, I mean, I'm not Indigenous. And there was that feeling of guilt to some degree for being even interested and involved. But 10 years ago, it didn't matter to me. It was more about Elder Betty sharing the story and how can I help her share that story, but how can I be an ally to help others within her community to help tell it as well. So we worked with so many people, but it all started with the Q&A with Elder Betty that we sat down after about 7 years. Then things became serious, and we started meeting every day for about 5 days straight, and we spoke all day, every day for 5 days. And I set up the camera and just interviewed her, and I literally would ask one question in the morning, and she would talk, and she would tell me her story and her journey. And I'd maybe sometimes ask one more question in those first 3 days. I asked one question, and she spoke the entire time for hours. And then we would break. We would always have tobacco first. We would always say a prayer. She would always say a prayer to start it. So there's a process that this took a lot of time. This wasn't just an overnight. I fly in and hey, let's go do this. No, it was a conversation, and that was the beginning of the screenplay, not the docudrama. It was the screenplay that kind of evolved from that. And while we were going, I was going to different events with Elder Betty. I was invited to, whether it be a conference for residential school survivors or whether it was to go to her nation and find out more of the places where things happen. And the camera just started rolling. It's like it just happened. And we didn't know that at that time we were actually filming a docudrama. We had no idea. And it took about a year of that, and then suddenly my partners were saying to me, Eppo, let's just, you're going to visit her all the time. Like, let's do this. Let's just continue. No funding, just from two partners who were there to help me tell this story. There was no funding from any other sources. And we worked together to get to where we are today. So and I skipped out so much, but the most important thing, I think, now looking back, is definitely just listening, following protocol at all times. And I've learned so much, truth needs to come first before anything. It builds respect. It builds resilience. It builds all the things that you need to survive. And that's what I found out from listening to her as a survivor. So.
Wow. So it basically took almost a decade to get to this point?
Well, I'd say of hard, solid work, 3 years.
But building, trust?
But 10 years. 10 years, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, there was some times where Elder Betty was questioning, what are you doing? And let's go, Eppo, let's go. You said these things, let's follow through, right? So I'd go to my partners. and here we are, yeah.
Wow. Third question. Were there any scenes or moments that were challenging to film or portray?
Oh, yeah. There's so many. To even attempt to recreate. To really understand. Again, it goes back to listening, and I think that brought us to one moment where I felt very vulnerable. Before we were shooting some of the reenactment scenes, Elder Betty got into a little bit of an accident, and so she could not come to Alberta for some of our filming. And so having her not there was number one, very difficult, because this was all about her being there for those reenactments. And so number one was her safety. I just wanted her to be fine. Well, it hurt me that she was injured and she needed to have some rehabilitation to get her back in gear so that she can come back on board and we can go back to filming. But that was a very trying time. So then to film an important scene that we did with the mother letting go of her daughter out that door into the winter, into the cold, like that's a very traumatic thing, because you can point fingers at the mother and so there's all these stories, what brought the mother to be in that situation with her daughter. And that came back again to listening at the very beginning, sitting and talking, and for how Elder Betty spoke towards her mother's actions, not to put down her mother. She loved her mother. She loved both her mothers. She had two mothers, and she loved them both. But it was a hard part of the story for her to share, but she shared it in such detail to me that I felt so confident going into that shoot. Well, she's going to be there. Elder Betty's going to be there beside me. So it's going to be hard. It's going to be challenging. But it became all the more challenging because she wasn't even there. But there was prayers, there was conversations that happened on the days leading up to the filming. I told Elder Betty everything we were doing, and where we were, and what's happening, and how many people are there, and by me explaining that to her on the phone and saying, hey, this is what we're doing today, and this is what our goal is, and letting everyone. Then we would have a prayer before we start filming, all addressing, the fact that Elder Betty wasn't even there, but she was there in spirit with us. It was tough. It was really hard, but I felt like, all that pre-production and listening and speaking and conversation led us to a moment where I just had to let go. And the camera started rolling, and it happened. Yeah, it happened.
Wow. That was pretty good. How did making the film impact you personally or change your perspective?
I thought I knew a lot of the residential school story. I thought I knew, I knew a lot of people at the time before I even met Elder Betty who had been through the residential school. I have done some other shows and films and programming that touched on the residential school. If we did a story about grizzly bears, we're on the West Coast, and the story of a young man who needed the grizzly bear to help him survive the residential school trauma he went through. So he became a spirit bear, and through potlatches and ceremonies with his people, he found himself. So I learned about the residential school through that, but to me, all I saw was a building. Really, I saw a building and I took pictures of it, and it's like, whoa, that's the residential school. That's where these horrible things happened. But nothing really educates you until you hear it from the voice of a survivor. You need to hear it from the voice of a survivor. And in person, and for some people, they can't do that in person, but maybe off a video or off of a radio interview or whatever. You need to hear that voice. You need to hear the voice, because without it, you're truly not going to understand. We can put things on paper as much as we want, but the oral storytelling is the number one thing. So when I sat in that interview room where we had the camera, even playing back the video is great, and it gave me the history and told me the chronological story of what happened. But being there in person and listening to it, that's when I was completely, what? This happened? What? And then it hit me orally. Yeah, it's like we sit around a fire like we are right now. We're actually sitting around a fire, and we're telling story and we're sharing story, because it's in everyone's background. It's in everyone's culture going way back. We have all sat around a fire and told stories, and that's all it comes down to with this. And that's how I've learned about the residential school system, is through Elder Betty Ross and her sharing her story to me directly. And that's it's been overwhelming. It's been a game changer for my family. Yeah, for my friends, for my community. It's changed it completely upside down. I've lost friends. Yeah. Yeah. Because they haven't heard that story orally. They haven't heard it. And one day they'll hear it. They'll listen.
What advice would you give to another filmmaker wanting to tell stories about truth, trauma, and healing in Indigenous communities?
I'm not one to go around telling anybody how to do anything at all. All I can share is just my own experience. So I can answer that question only through what I've tried to do. And I feel like it's not like an accomplishment. It's not like I can check off the box. Okay, now I've done this. It's not like that at all. It's just about being respectful. It's about being respectful and knowing your place. By me understanding what an elder, even the word elder means, has affected me in my own life, in my own family. I started calling my dad Elder Rolf, before he passed away, and he's like, oh, and then he took that as a sign of respect by calling in front of other people elder to my own father, and I think there's a lot to learn, and that's, again, I can't really answer that question and say how anyone who's Indigenous telling an Indigenous story. All I can say is there needs to be more of people like you to do that. It's your job. You know it, so you got to take it on and accomplish the stories that you need to tackle in your own community. And so that's, if anything, I just know that that's something people like yourself need to do. I've already talked to you. You told me that you have these ideas. So it's important for you to, then maybe that's one of the reasons why we're here today right now is to help you start launching off on your own storytelling for your own community. So, yeah. And thank you for Elder Betty. I think, number one, I'm dealing with my own I'm always kind of checking myself, checking in with myself, just saying, okay, because I am non-Indigenous, I don't want to be taking something away from somebody else. And I've always had that fear. I'm just like, I'm just doing this because I need to do it. And so that's why it's hard for me to express everything. And when you asked me that question, because I just took it right away as like I don't want to be seen as the one who knows how to do that. But thank you, Elder Betty, for sharing with me again some of our journey. But yes, definitely for any filmmaker or anybody going out there who want to help tell that story, it's about building a relationship. And so, as Elder Betty explained to you, it wasn't just phone calls, and even in the face-to-faces, it's not about seeing each other. It's about truly laying your heart on the table and really expressing where you're coming from, who you are, what you're about, and what you want to try to achieve, but also about listening. So I had to listen to Elder Betty, following protocol. Not just that the act of giving tobacco really makes you think about it, right? I've never had that. I've had to give tobacco a few times before I met Elder Betty, but I really didn't understand what it meant until I did it with her. The importance of it, because that physical gesture, that physical movement of doing that, I've learned through her there's life in that tobacco, and I'm sharing it with her, and now she can take that. And now I've just built a bond by doing that, eye to eye, looking at each other and knowing that it's coming from a good place where I'm asking these questions. So that protocol for any other person out there is everything. And you can't put a timeline on it. It can't be like, okay, at 9:00, we're supposed to be talking right now. And it's already 9:45 and we're still doing protocol. there's no clock. And I've learned that with Elder Betty, myself, is that you can't, especially with an elder, you cannot put there is no time. It's not about that. I'm not worried about where I'm going next or what's going to happen. I'm right here, right now with you and Elder Betty, and we're sharing this great moment, right? And we're taking our time with you, because you deserve that. So yeah. So as a filmmaker to another filmmaker, and to other filmmakers or storytellers or authors, please follow protocol and build trust with the people that you're going to meet, whether they're elders or youth, or it doesn't matter who they are. Show them respect in some way, shape, or form. If there's not always tobacco there, then let them know that there should be tobacco there. Let them know that we should be using tobacco now. But just so you know, I'm asking you this, and I owe you some tobacco. But
Yeah.
I really like how Elder Betty thinks. She keeps me on my toes. It's not just another interview. We're spending our time with you and sharing story. We're sitting around that fire, and there are things that have to happen to build that relationship that we are with you as an interviewer right now. You need to trust us, and we need to trust you. And that's happening. It's electric. It's alive right now. It's great. Like now I'm into this really. So all I can say is today, what happened today was something else. And so it gives us a reason why we're doing what we're doing, like as Elder Betty said. So we're just so thankful. Ekosani, we're so thankful for the open doors, and we had as much to learn about you as you did to learn about Elder Betty's story. We learned a lot today. I know I did. Learned so much, and now I'm curious for more, and I want to know how things go with all the work that you're doing here. It's incredible, and to find your languages, to bring them back. It's a big task, but you guys are in it. You're in it. You're in the thick of it right now. It's great. Well, thank you so much
Of
for having us.
course.
Thank you.
I don't know, it was pretty good
Thank
to meet you
you.
guys.
Yeah.